Mabuhay! I'm Eugenia Moraleda, and you're watching Landscapes of Learning. Today, we will take you in to the scenes and ideas behind the Learning series, which was designed for pupils, students, teachers, home tutors, and other persons engaged in the DEPED's blended distance learning. Let's start with the first idea, the conceptual framework. You see four components: outcomes, knowing, doing, and assessment. Given the challenge of a no face-to-face encounter, the Landscapes of Learning proposes a new way of enhancing the components of the framework. Let's start with the first, knowing. Knowing refers to the student work. What is the student supposed to be doing? How should he study, and etc. But what we mean is that, notice in the learning series, you find a learning area as the center, the focus. And surrounding it, you have critical content, you have concepts, and essential understanding. Well, simply put, it means that at the center is the discipline, and content and performances or skills learning should be discipline-based. Further, when it says critical content, we means to answer the question, what is important to do now? How does it apply to future lessons, to other cultures, to other countries? A universality of condition. Is it abstract? Is it good? All these things fall under critical content. It doesn't mean that in the learning area all the topics will be taken care of. Now, for our purposes, we only need what is important and significant at the moment, so that it is applicable later on. Next, we have the concept. Well, the concept can be referred to in the curriculum which the DEPED has already issued. As to essential understanding, it means that the student should not only rely on paper pencil tests, on superficial things on the surface. It should deepen its understanding, making it broader, wider, but still remaining focused. Now, the next thing we should be acquainted with is the doing part. The doing part is the teacher's work. Now, remember that in this particular case, teacher's work is a bit challenging. Why? Because the teacher must do his role of teaching, managing. But for LLBC19, it must be facilitating the learning process. Now, how do we facilitate? Let us see. What are these processes? There are 6 areas covered, and they specify how the teacher will do it because or in spite of the no face-to-face encounter. He is interacting with someone somewhere far from his place or teaching. So the first is experiencing. What do we mean by experiencing? Well, the important thing by the teacher that the teacher should do is providing a first encounter, and that first encounter must be something that will potentially engage the student in researching, in studying, and then triggering his interest. It should be a first encounter, like what a celebrity's husband said, "How did you feel when you saw your daughter?" His answer was very simple. "Well, it was like love at first sight." It should be something like that. Now next is interacting. Why? With whom will the teacher interact? With someone who is at a distance? Will it be by phone? Well, remember that there are so many students, you cannot do that at a particular time. So interaction here mean that the teacher prepares materials that will be asking so many things, making the student interact, so that by that time it is revealed what the student feels about the subject, what is it that he wants to know, what is it that he does not know, and what to tell him, what should be or ought to know. So that's for interacting. But in this case, the attitude of the teacher and the learner should be open mind, open heart. There shouldn't be any prejudices, or the teacher should show that she has no time or is not interested in what the learner is feeling about the subject. Now the third is connecting. This is also prepared to enlist other sources outside of the teacher, such as a library, perhaps some materials available, or consulting peers, not consulting peers, more on consulting the tutor, his home tutor, and other persons engaged in education or partially supporting the DEC's efforts to educate the students at a distance. Now for the fourth, you have practice. Important to practice, of course, is the student trying to learn new things, to admit what he does not know, and to be interested in knowing more because he feels that what he is learning is important. But important here is the feedback and how is it done. Like an interaction, it should be more questions specific to the materials being studied. The teacher must already prepare expected difficulties the child will have and prepare questions for that, so that he will continue practicing feedback, but it is focused. It's not just practicing skills, it's not just practicing or reading more, it's really more focused on the subject in question. The fourth is innovating. So from practicing and getting feedback from the teachers of his early efforts, the student will now tinker, experiment with what is possible, what he can do, and what needs to be done, leading to the achievement or learning more about the concept. And from innovating, he goes to self-assessment, which is the important thing in assessment in a landscapes of learning. The teacher should expect something like the child is talented or does not know, but he lets it go that the student is knowledgeable precisely, but he needs to be taught some more or to learn more in order to reach another level. So it is, what does he know, what doesn't he know, does he want to know it, or should he know it because it is important? And so much for brief discussion of the doing part. Now the last, of course, is the assessment. Assessment, we are familiar with terms like tests, observations, charts, progress charts, review, and the like. And of course, what we dread most is the achievement test. They offer us measures of how much we have learned. But in the landscapes of learning, we don't go just that. We see to it that the questions are key concept questions in a continuum of assessment designed to sustain the compellingly interactive experience so that assessment will provide evidences of learning. By whom? For whom? Well, the learning should be towards the desired results, which is an educated individual in mind, in heart, and living a rich spiritual life. Impossible? Possible? Given the resiliency of the Filipino, the answer is let's do this.